6:30 now, so we are going to start our Friday night chat. I'm very excited to welcome to the platform Darius Grandberry. Darius's wife has been a friend of the family for a long time, and so he was introduced to our family, which makes him a part of the Grand family, Love family. We are so excited to have him on the platform because given this day and this time, for such a time as this, it is so important to profile Black excellence. And I've just been digging deep into entrepreneurship ideations and innovations, particularly with African Americans, because there's a lot of genius that hasn't been profiled. And so I've really had a heart to do that, to have that deep discussion about what's going on in the industries in terms of funding and opportunities and success. How do you define success and how do you get there? In my particular area, I focus on organizational leadership. And so any professional that I profile, I want to dig in deep to find out about team dynamics and diversity and the organizational structure. And so tonight, Darius is going to teach me about fantasy football. So I'm really excited about that.
Happy to do it.
Let me just give you a little background about Darius. He will introduce himself, but Darius was educated at the University of Illinois in Champaign, Urbana. He received his BS in finance, I believe. Is that correct?
Accounting, actually.
Accounting.
Yeah.
He received his MBA from Northwestern University. He's a CPA, and he's also the founder and CEO of LeagueSwipe. Swipe as well. And that is, I'm going to read this description, the first and only digital wallet that targets the near 8 billion fantasy sports market. Is that correct? It is a
That is correct.
Wallet. Okay.
That is correct. It's a digital wallet.
Okay. So Darius, tell me a little bit about yourself.
First off, Dr. Love, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you all for joining this afternoon. I really do appreciate the opportunity to share with you a little bit about me and my vision for LeagueSwipe and just my passion for entrepreneurship and seeing people of color receive equity throughout the process, whether it's capital and opportunity. So thank you again for the opportunity. I'm Darius Grandberry, founder of LeagueSwipe. I'm a Chicago native, born and raised, been in and around Chicago my entire life. Like Dr. Love mentioned earlier, I went to University of Illinois, then Northwestern. So I cut my teeth in accounting. I'm a CPA. I spent 10 years working for a local public accounting firm, which was at the time one of the largest Black-owned accounting firms in the nation, started by a woman by the name of Mary Washington, who was the first African-American female CPA in the country. So a lot of history there. I went from there to private equity, where I spent 10 years working for another Black-led startup private equity firm, where we went from one fund, about $100 million under management, to $1 billion under management by the time I left. I started as assistant controller. By the time I left, I was the CFO and a principal on the investment team. So I've been in and around the movement of money my entire professional career of over 20 years. And as you can suspect from my new venture, I'm a huge sports fan. And some years ago, I decided that I would try my best to marry my passion for sports with my professional expertise. And as a result, LeagueSwipe was born. The first digital wallet that targets sports bettors. It allows them to aggregate how they pay to play online and off the games that they enjoy and get paid fast when they win. So if you have any issues paying in or getting paid out, we're here to solve that. We're here to help. So happy to share more about sort of my journey and where we are. But I'm a proud father of two, married to a beautiful wife, 12 years. We are celebrating our 12-year anniversary in a couple weeks. And we have two beautiful children that we love. So yeah.
Well, you were very intentional about selecting Black-owned corporations to work for. Is that correct? Or
You know what?
did it just happen that way?
And I'm on the record of saying that it wasn't overly intentional,
Okay.
but there was a real connection as I was going through the interview processes when I was looking for jobs out of college and then looking to change careers. So it wasn't overly intentional. I definitely applied and interviewed at non-Black owned companies, but it was something about being part of building something that was Black owned and creating a legacy. And I began, to really appreciate the challenge of building generational wealth in the world of finance. And I saw a great opportunity to be one of the founding members and a foundational piece of allowing that to happen for the next generation of folks that look like me.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Kim right now is in an organizational leadership class, and one thing that we talk about are artifacts and symbolism. So what drew you to those two organizations? They're Black owned, but there's something that was unique in what you heard or your perceptions of how things would operate differently within those environments. So could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. My boss, the name of the first firm is Washington, Pittman and McKeever, run by Lester McKeever, who is a prominent African-American businessman here in Chicago. And he is a University of Illinois graduate and sat on the board of directors. He's a very kind guy. I think when you talk about leadership, you talk about empathy and listening and understanding. You get that from him in the first conversation. And I think that was a differentiator in sort of how I was interviewing, or the interviewers that I had at the time coming out of college. And I appreciated that just level of understanding and empathy early on in the process. So that drew me to that first position. And also, like I said, I really saw an opportunity to be part of a team that was building something greater. And there was a lot of talk about merging businesses and challenging legacy institutions and going after larger contracts and needing the right people in the right places at the right time to do that. And I saw myself as being as possibly being one of the right people to do that. So that really attracted me to both of the organizations. I mean, the private equity firm run by African-American man who was, trying to raise capital for nearly a decade, and everything happened from Y2K to 911, and then he could have stopped, but he kept moving. He had finally reached an inflection point where he needed to start to build a team that can help sustain the business and grow it and scale it. And he chose me, and I respect him a lot for that. So, and that too attracted me to that position, being part of that next generation to help take that business to the next level.
So what I hear, it's in the messaging that giving you an opportunity to blaze the trail in territories that has been untouched or untethered by anything that African Americans can do, right? Because it's typically a white-owned corporation, a white-owned industry, or they are very dominant. But when you hear the messaging that somebody of color can actually blaze that trail as well, it is really encouraging to do so.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
I've also often been called a glutton for punishment too. so it may be a little stubbornness also in the fact that if it's overly easy, it's not that challenging to me. So I like a challenge. And I thought it was a real opportunity. I mean, we could talk about this later. I was destined to be an entrepreneur. I mean, I come from a large family of entrepreneurs. So I felt like it was always destiny to be there. And I saw these opportunities too, although they were semi-established businesses, they still were run like startups. There was still an entrepreneurial spirit. There was still a spirit of everyone has to chip in and wear different hats. So I thought it would be a great opportunity for me to sort of cut my teeth and learn how to do that, like how to bootstrap and build from the ground up. If I went to a organization where I was just a sort of a cog in the wheel or what have you, I don't think I would have gotten that perspective. Looking back, I think, that was the right choice for me. It's really given me energy to keep moving as I continue to grow this business through the ups and downs of, the startup journey.
Well, in small businesses, you have an opportunity to shape the organizational culture and the team dynamics and control the messaging. So that's what innovators do, right?
Yeah.
So do you think in corporations, do you think that they encourage that entrepreneurship?
I think they talk about it. They talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all entrepreneurial, executive coaching became like, in the early 2000s, like everyone became an executive coach and everyone was hiring executive coaches to come in and talk about situational leadership and having entrepreneurs in every seat. Like they talk about it. But not many create an environment that's conducive to supporting entrepreneurial behaviors and thinking, right? Like there's still red tape, there's still groupthink that discourages folks from truly being entrepreneurial.
Yes.
And I've experienced it many times over. And it is discouraging when you have an entrepreneurial spirit and they tell you to challenge the status quo, but when you challenge the status quo, it isn't as well received as as they would like you to believe in those situational leadership training sessions.
Yes. I'm gonna amen that. Especially teaching leadership and teaching about transformational leadership and situational and contingency leadership and servant leadership. When you think outside the box, sometimes, the messaging, again, I'll go back to that. It's how you message what you'd like to do with great intentions, because sometimes you see that vision, it's bigger, right? And so you're so restless and you feel very confined in what you're doing because you know that there's more that you can be doing. And so if you're sitting in a situation where you're just thinking things are just popping off in your head, just very creatively and innovatively.
Yeah.
And then, okay, where do you go? You write it down. You never want to lose your thoughts. You just write it down and you'll be able to use that information later. But what would you do to encourage that entrepreneur to continue forward, pushing forward? What suggestions would you provide?
Yeah, I don't think you have a choice. If you truly have an entrepreneurial spirit, I don't think you would rest well not being able to voice how you truly feel. It's one, I'll say, find a situation where leadership is more supportive of the entrepreneurial spirit. If you find that you're being shut down, like get out of it. Life is too short, careers are too short. Like that's just not the place for you. And you'll know soon. You'll know right away when you have conversations, and you'll understand if people are truly listening. Then they'll ask questions and they'll want to learn more about what it is you're really, what you're really trying to innovate around. I've had one of the issues that I've had sort of thinking outside the box and being entrepreneurial and non-entrepreneurial environments was my communication style was questioned both by outside folks and then me personally. Like I began to question whether or not I was effective in my communication style. Like, I know we're saying that we want to change. I'm offering suggestions on ways to think about how we can change. but I'm getting pushback, and they're being shut down. Like, so maybe I'm not communicating it in a way that it sounds, you know, enticing enough or innovative enough for us to act on. So I had to really take a step back and think about sort of, is it me? Is it the environment I'm in? So I would tell folks, when you talk about, you know, how to encourage them, do that. You have to think, look introspectively, think about your communication style. Are you communicating effectively? And is the environment conducive to appreciating, you know, that outside the box thinking, and then make a decision, you know, based upon those two realities.
That's good. That's very good. What is your leadership style?
I listen. Like, I start with listening. Like, for real, I think, and I've used the word empathy, and I try to use it sincerely. I feel like it's sort of been bastardized a little bit over the last couple years through some of the things that have happened. People have to learn empathy. Like, yeah, there is a level of understanding. Like, you may not understand where people are coming from, and you need to be more diligent in trying to get that understanding. But some people choose not to be empathetic. They choose to be cruel or mean or selfish, is probably a better word to describe sort of some people's leadership style. But I listen in hopes of understanding people's perspective. I'm fortunate that I feel that I'm at a point now where I have gained a lot of perspective. I've been around the block a couple times now. I've checked the air. Like, I remember some years ago, I was in the gym and the guy told me, I think I was in my late 20s, and I was acting like I had been around the block a little bit, and I've known a few things. He's like, man, you are your first trip around, maybe your second. It's like, come back and talk to me when you are on trip 3 or 4. And throughout my years, I started to really understand sort of that metaphor. Like, those first couple trips, like, you trying to get around as fast as you can, right? To see all the things that you can see. Those second and third, you take a step back. You start to look at your surroundings, look at the atmosphere, start to understand things. And then, you know, around trip 3 or 4, you can start to stop and pause and take in the things that matter most to you. Like, so I think I'm at a point where I have a greater perspective on things, but I don't have, other people's perspectives may be different than mine. So I like to start by listening and gain perspectives, and then talking through it from there. That's one aspect. I like to empower people. I think that's a big part of being an effective leader. I like to delegate and let people truly lead projects and make their own decisions, but be able to explain to me why those decisions are being made. I think that's how you build the next generation of leaders. So those two are really important to me. Listening and empower.
Listening and empowerment. How big is your team at LeagueSwipe?
We are 3 people and growing. Three executive team members, and then we have 4 advisors that also are part of Team LeagueSwipe. So we're growing.
Okay, so would you explain a little bit about what the digital wallet does and how that is competitive as opposed to PayPal and Venmo? You know, what are some of the advantages of using LeagueSwipe? All of that. I want to hear about all of that.
So right now, as it stands, if you play fantasy sports, daily fantasy sports, or sports betting, you may play on multiple platforms, from FanDuel to DraftKings to ESPN, and you may have your money spread across these multiple platforms, $100 here, $200 there. In order to put money on those platforms to play those games, you have to log in, create credentials, you have to enter sensitive information like your social security numbers, take pictures of your driver's license just to wait days, if not weeks, to get paid money that you've already won. We're killing that friction. We're allowing you to aggregate how you pay to play. Once your LeagueSwipe verified and validated, you can play across all those platforms. You deposit money on our platform, and you choose how much you want to play on each individual platform. So we're adding real efficiency. We're empowering users to take over, to be more secure in how they play, and get paid fast when they win too. So we're working with payment infrastructure to allow real-time payments, whereas in the current landscape, sometimes you have to wait quite a bit to get paid. So, yeah.
What's the demographics of a sports bettor?
Oh man, it's growing. I mean, sports betting is in its nascent phases here in the States. I mean, real legalized sports betting. You know, fantasy sports and daily fantasy sports and March Madness pools are all derivatives of betting on sports in some capacity. But now legalized sports betting is here, and it's growing enormously. So the demographic is all over the spectrum. I mean, traditionally you would think it was middle-aged men who make incomes over $50,000 or $60,000, but that is changing significantly. You have both men and women participating in pools and betting at record numbers. So it really is growing, and people are starting younger, you know, playing fantasy sports. And I think another aspect too, I mean, you talk about responsible gaming, which we can talk about as well. And I think that's one of the risks and one of the things people associate with sports betting, responsible gaming. We have a real opportunity in what we're doing to help sort of help combat it, or at least provide a mitigating factor where we're aggregating plays so that it's cumulative, and you can see sort of your betting profile landscape all in one package. Because sometimes when it's separated, you don't know sort of, you know, what frequency in which you're playing. So we're helping, and from that aspect as well.
Is there a minimum age?
Yeah, most states is 18 or 21 for sports betting, 18 for fantasy sports. Yeah.
And what sports are most frequently bet on? Like,
football. Football is king.
Is it all football?
No, it's not all football. Not at all.
Okay.
Oh man, when you're talking about fantasy sports, I mean, you got fantasy bass fishing, you got fantasy NASCAR, you got people betting on The Bachelor. Like, there's fantasy everything. So horse racing, and so no, there's a large audience of fantasy sports players and bettors. And what's growing is in popularity are prop bets. Before it was pretty standard, you bet on the outcome of a game, but now you can bet on almost anything within a game. If someone's going to make the next shot, someone's going to, you know, catch the next pass, like all of that. So there are transactions happening continuously. And at LeagueSwipe, we're just trying to make those transactions happen more seamless, or as seamless as possible.
Okay. So do you offer any help or any guidance as to what teams you should pick, or the size of the team, or acquiring the players?
No. That's outside of my my skill set.
Okay.
We're money movers. We're money movers. We want to make sure money is moving efficiently as possible. We're aggregating.
I did my homework.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. Yeah.
I want to know about free agency.
Oh, you were ready to go.
Yeah.
You were ready to go.
The blind bid.
Look at you. Oh, okay. Yeah, you were ready to go. You were ready to go. Yeah.
But most of all, organizationally, just really learning about the culture and sports betting and what's conducive, as you said, and even from an entrepreneurial hold on one second, please. Even from an entrepreneur perspective, how do you build? How do you know when, where, how to scale your organization so that you won't grow too fast or too slow, or even building a sustainable model over time? It's all of those questions that you're asking when you're just starting a business, how to raise capital, all of those things. It's just so many integral parts when you're thinking about starting a business. It's not just the internet and a product.
That's absolutely right.
No.
But the most important thing to do it, the most important piece of that is to start.
Yeah.
Just to start. You have to start.
You have to start.
Don't self-select yourself out of the process. It's not easy. It's never going to be a right time. But if you have if it's in your spirit to do it, you got to start. You have to start. There are going to be a lot of challenges. You're not going to know everything. I mean, I'm in so many Slack groups with founders who've been doing this for years, and you think everyone has it figured out. No, we're all trying to figure it out as we go. I think one of the best quotes in business is, running a startup is like jumping off a building and building a plane on the way down. Like that is sort of how that's sort of how it works in this. So you have to be intentional and mindful of all those pieces, of culture, having the right people, building your business legally and being protected, IP and all those things. I've worked with an advisor. It's funny, we had a conversation today, and I'm, going in on how many different things we got to get done. He's like, Darius, my advice to you, man, tackle one impossible thing at a time. I was like, oh, you're right. You're right. So I think if you take that approach on a daily basis, you'll get through it. My hope is just more people to look like me get the opportunity to try, and that's what I'm really in this to support. We have so many unique challenges that I think are coming to light over the last couple of years. Folks who've been in and around it have known that they existed for years and have been fighting to get it changed. So there's been a lot of talk, but the numbers aren't changing. So we got to figure out, how we back up that talk with true action that leads to change.
Absolutely.
We want to do that at LeagueSwipe. I mean, one of the reasons that I really, truly started into the sports betting arena is because the lack of diversity that exists. This is a new industry that's soon to be a $100 billion industry. I mean, we did almost $1 billion in handle in the state of Illinois alone 2 months ago. So that's significant amount of money is exchanging hands. So this is another soon to be it could be $1 trillion industry that has come up, and folks of color are being left out. And I want to make sure that doesn't happen. Similar to what happened in the cannabis, or what's happening in the cannabis industry, where folks are still waiting to participate. I feel like we have to wait too long to participate. So I see LeagueSwipe as being a great opportunity for us to participate in this new wealth building opportunity. So that's really part of our mission, is to do that. Okay.
Well, speaking about the funding, I know that you have been in several competitions to raise. Was that $100,000 in capital?
We've raised over $100,000 in capital.
So you won the competition?
The latest competition for 100,000, we did not. We were a finalist in that competition. We were a finalist in that competition. We were just recently a finalist in the Harvard Business Black New Venture Competition.
Congratulations! I saw that.
Well. Yeah. Thank you.
So how does that work? How does that work in terms of you competing, making industries aware? How does that work? Raising funds?
Yeah. I mean, fundraising, there's really no fun in fundraising. Fundraising is tough. It's tough. It's tough.
Oh, no.
It's one of the toughest things I've ever done in my entire life. I mean, convincing people to give you money for your dream and being told no over and over and over again, and just realizing that it's par for the course. It's easier said than done. I mean, you can only hear that your baby is ugly so many times before you may start to believe it. So we've done several things to get funded over the years. We did an equity crowdfunding campaign, which was great. It was an opportunity for family and friends to participate. And this was late 2019, early 2020. I became a real proponent for crowdfunding when it became legal, because I saw it as a great opportunity for people who've been left out finally participate in early stage funding. So
Absolutely.
I created a crowdfunding campaign for a couple reasons. One, to raise capital for my business, and two, to give my family and friends exposure to equity crowdfunding and crowdfunding in general, as another way to diversify their investing. So we did that. And then we're doing the pitch circuit, where we've raised capital through some pitch competitions, and we're starting our really sort of institutional investing round, angel investing, institutional investing round, where we're talking to VCs. So there's a process there. There are a lot of things that you have to do. There are a lot of the funding landscape has sort of evolved. There are a lot of people, out here providing capital, and they're saying they're providing it at the earliest stages, but it's just not. The numbers aren't showing that to be true for people of color getting money at the earliest stages. So those are things that we definitely need to change. Talking earlier about the need for people to take earlier bets on Black and brown folks. We need more of that. So pitch competitions and equity crowdfunding are two vehicles to do that, but we need other outlets and other folks to step up to provide that opportunity. Because again, it's about opportunity. I've seen many folks that look like me fall out of the sort of the entrepreneurial game because they didn't have the runway to sustain them for a long time, right? We don't have those friends and family rounds that are, $100,000, $200,000 that allows you to go figure it out. Oftentimes we have what we think in our mind is one bite at the apple. So we got to try to do this, we got to button it up, get it right. We can only ask our friends once, and we scrap together a few $1,000s, and if it doesn't work, then we have to move on. And there's a lot of great opportunity, great ideas, great visions, and great leaders that don't truly get to showcase their talents because of the lack of that early investment.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know Ms. Johnson has a question for you.
Absolutely.
I'm going to open it up to the Q&A session right now. Kim?
Yeah, this has been such a great discussion, and Dr. Love is so great. She's such a good interviewer in pulling out all of these different things. You ask such wonderful questions. It's hard to follow up with questions after you've asked. I'm sitting here nodding because so much of what he is being spoken it resonates. Like you said, you're not comfortable in that corporate culture, right? And that uncomfortable position lets you know that you don't belong there. And so people, I think, specifically, at this time during the pandemic, you hear people are taking their, what are those called? The stimulus checks and turning them into multi-million-dollar companies. And so when you talk about your corporation, I think you said you've been around for 10 years. How do you plan for longevity? Because I know a lot of times in corporate cultures and in entrepreneurial startups, everybody's so gung-ho at the beginning. And then, like you said, you have to pick yourself up by your bootstraps. the average business in the US doesn't last past 3 years, right? I think that used to be the statistic. So how do you make sure that you are prepared to go the distance with a business or with a startup?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're actually 4 years in, so we haven't reached
4
the 10
years
years.
in. Okay.
Yeah, I spent 10 years in private equity, so we're
Okay.
about
Maybe
4
that was
years.
prophetic.
Yeah,
Maybe that was prophetic.
I claim it. I claim it. You know, and this is where I think I told Dr. Love, we'll be talking about faith, family, and football, this conversation. This is where my faith comes in. I don't know how people do it without believing in something, something stronger, higher, greater than them. If I relied on my own strength, I would have been done some time ago. You can't do it without a great support system, and I have a wonderful support system. Started with my wife. I had runway, like I had a timeline that's been extended and extended and extended. But I think she sees the resilience and the persistence, and she understands how uncomfortable I was in that uncomfortable corporate situation. And that helps a lot. So having that supportive support system allows you the opportunity to sustain the ups and downs of the entrepreneurial journey. So that's one. You got to be overly optimistic. I don't know if that's, I mean, like, you really have to believe that you can do it. You can't be half in, half out. You can't be hot and cold. Like, you can't, it just doesn't work. And you have to be honest with yourself. Entrepreneurship isn't for everyone. If you like, PTO, like defined PTO, and you like a 401k match, like, you're not gonna get that in the startup life early on. So you got to be okay without life without some infrastructure. So you have to really be real with yourself, and you have to plan and execute against that plan. And if you're not, then you should be reevaluating what it is that you're doing consistently. I mean, I think it's a day by day. It doesn't happen in a day. It's a day by day thing. So you just have to be committed to be in it for the long run. Yeah.
That's
and I'll tell you also, don't try to do 2 startups at once, because I made that mistake as well. Focus your energy on one thing. Do one impossible thing at a time.
Yeah. I like that you said that. Do one impossible thing at a time. And I believe that you, as you were explaining to us your history and what prompted you to start up your business, you talked about having mentors during the process. So how important is it for those who are wanting to venture out on their own to have someone that they can perhaps talk to and help advise them during the process?
Absolutely. It's absolutely imperative that you have great mentorship and great advisors along the way, of people who are doing or have done what it is you're trying to do. Family and friends are wonderful. Like, you need them as part of your support system, but they won't understand everything it is that you're going through as a entrepreneur, as someone starting a new venture. So you're really going to need that insight and that guidance from folks who've done it. Because many times you're going to think you're crazy. Like, maybe it's me. Like, what am I doing wrong? And I've had many times, I've sat with folks, advisors and mentors along this journey that said, no, you're doing everything right, man. This is it. Like, this is part of the journey. So you just have to continue down that path. So no, I would encourage, I was a solo founder. And that's another thing that I say is extremely difficult. Making every decision sort of in a silo early on is difficult. So if that's you, having advisors and mentors are absolutely necessary. Without that, you'll drive yourself crazy trying to ideate and execute all at the same time on a daily basis, especially when finances get tight, So it's, again, absolutely imperative to have good advisors and mentors along the way.
I love the fact that you talk about your support system, and especially, growing up in an African-American community and our history here in this country, a lot of what we've gone through, it's been the communal support that's gotten us through the hard times. And it's refreshing that our generation continues to do that. We still tend to seek out our culture and our subcultures. And I really like the fact that you have worked for Black-owned businesses and you look to support Black-owned businesses and to open up, these different innovative areas. You're not sports betting, but you're helping to funnel that money for sports betting in the state of Illinois, looking to create generational wealth. I love that whole entire concept, and very, very proud to hear a young Black man speak about those things. So
I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your wealth of knowledge with us.
Thank you. No, we take job creation very seriously. I mean, we're 3 people now, but our ultimate goal is to employ people that are representative of the communities that I grew up in. And I'm talking about like situational changing, generational changing positions, like chief marketing and software engineering positions, not your, commoditized jobs that large corporations come in and offer at their warehouses. I won't mention any names, but we're truly, yeah. So we're really trying to, again, change the trajectory of Black families in our city.
I'm going to ask Dr. Love to speak in on this one because he's an entrepreneur himself. And I know that there was some things that he heard that he wanted to speak into, particularly Darius, with family and wealth building and generational wealth. I'm sorry, Rev, I'm just taking your question from you. I want to invite you into this conversation from one entrepreneur to another.
No, you're the queen, huh?
No, you go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I cut myself off.
No, I had a ton of questions. Thank you so much, Darius. This was great.
Appreciate it.
And I love hearing your heart as well as your vision for what God is doing through you. Gosh, I had a ton of questions go through my head, but I love the aspect that you talked about, that Kim actually just touched on, about this aspect of building generational wealth. But the thing that maybe you can touch on a little bit more is how do you think that we can build 2 things? First of all, the image of what you're doing, the imagery, the modeling of what you're doing. How can we better present that type of modeling to the communities that don't have that vision that these type of opportunities exist, these type of roles exist? That's the first piece, the educational and the vocational opportunity. And then how can we all go about the business of inspiring young folk to step into that pipeline, so that we can talk about there's not enough of people that look like us doing what we're doing, but there has to be a long-term pipeline established. And how can we play a part in that to make in the different industries to make some of that kind of happen?
Yeah. No, great questions. I appreciate it. Some years ago, I started a nonprofit called Men Empowerment Network, where we operated under the ethos, or we had an equation that was education times exposure equals opportunity. And we would talk to kids and say, look, get as much exposure as you can to any and everything that you may be remotely interested in. Educate yourself on what it takes to do that, and watch the opportunities in your life explode exponentially.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think us as individuals have the responsibility of providing that exposure and that education to the youth to increase their pool of opportunities. I think, unfortunately, a lot of our young folks are limited in their exposure. I mean, when I was growing up, going downtown was something different. Like, we did that once a year or something. Like, we didn't know what was happening down there. So I think it is important to give people, again, give kids perspective early in life about what is possible. And I think that's a great way to increase opportunities. And I like to see us do more of that. Take kids to work day, like take 10 kids. They ain't got to, like, everybody, let them see what it is. And I have to say, I had to plug my niece. I'm proud of my niece. I talked to her 10, 15 years ago about medicine, and we talked about being an anesthesiologist, and she didn't even know what it was. And she's like, what? Now she's graduating from Meharry in 2 weeks, well on her way to be an anesthesiologist. So she wouldn't, yeah, that early exposure really had impact on the decisions she made since then. So I think we have an opportunity to do that. The second part of your question, if I remember correctly, I mean, how can we do more of that? I think we really need to be more supportive of one another. I think there is a mind shift that needs to happen. I spoke earlier about us having this mentality that we have one bite at the apple. That's really born out of us being afraid to fail. And I think, and I know my peers come from an environment and a culture that embraces failure in a way, well, non-successes. I won't even call them failures. They embrace attempts that don't work differently than we do. And I think we will succeed in creating a change when not only do we have the same opportunities to succeed, but the same opportunities to fail.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's profound. That's profound. That's beautifully said.
That is. Okay. I'm going to ask Mitten Roy. Darius just graduated from the Organizational Leadership Program at Judson University, and he got accepted into doctoral programs. And so he is here to ask you some questions. His vision is to go back to India with his degrees and his education to start a nonprofit organization over there to help some of the poverty-stricken areas and educating the communities over there as well. So Mitten. Awesome.
How you doing, Mitten?
Thank you, Dr. Love. I'm good, Darius. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed whatever you spoke, like, challenge the status quo, and then about your communication styles and empowering other people. Thank you very much. It's really encouraging.
My pleasure.
To see people of color like you, come up and not only do well, but encourage others to do well, and, select people of color to be able to come up, and run the race with other people, and
right.
do the fight and whatever is necessary for the advancement of people of color, which I guess it's necessary at this point. And so, as you mentioned that you try to hire people, those are people of color, and you want kids to learn from a very early age on gain perspectives. So are there any organizations that you are working with, or other entrepreneurs that you are working with that have the same vision or have the same strategy?
Absolutely. I'm a volunteer at an organization called Dream Wakers, where a group of volunteers like myself virtually meet with classrooms of high school students or middle grade school and high school students to talk about our careers and our journeys. I think that is, as I talked about earlier, giving them exposure. So I talked to, I think, a freshman math class a couple months ago out of DC, and we talked about everything from Shark Tank, finance to NBA 2K, and it was just a great conversation. And they were really appreciative that they can have a relatable conversation with someone that looks like them. I think again, it gives them an opportunity to change their aspirations or give them more perspective on what success may look like or what career paths may look like. So that's one organization. I'm also a volunteer at Joseph Business School, which is a Christian-based business school out of Forest Park, Illinois.
That's in my neighborhood, actually.
Is that right?
I live in River Forest. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I just moved from out that way. So no,
Okay.
that's cool. Yeah. So Joseph.
What's the name of the
Joseph
school you
Business School. Joseph
Okay.
Business School. I volunteer there as an evaluator and mentor to the students there. So these are all entrepreneurs who are going to a Christian-based business school to really create business plans and create plans on how to sustain or grow or build a business. So I evaluate business plans and give them feedback on their pitches and walk through financial models. So I live literally almost across the street, and while I was building the early days of LeagueSwipe, I wasn't bringing in much income, so my tithes and offerings were as high as they used to be. So I was like, I got time.
Right.
Let me share my expertise, and it just led me to do that. And I've been doing that for the last 4 years.
Okay, good. Thank you so much for all that information. So just a quick thing. I remember I was watching a documentary, probably it's in Sweden, I think, or maybe some other Scandinavian countries. What they do is when kids are in high school, they basically have to own a business. So it's basically something hypothetical, not real business.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess they have classes where they actually teach on how they, take care of the business and challenge different aspects of the business and make the business grow. And probably that's one of the reasons why some of those countries are the best in innovation. They year after year, they win awards for innovation. And it's just because at a very small age, these kids are actually taught on how to own their businesses.
Yeah, no, that's great. And to Dr. Love's point about what can we do to help, we know there's disparities in access to quality education. So we need to supplement the educational resources in those areas where there's disparities. So having programs that introduce things like you talked about earlier in life would be extremely helpful.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I piloted a couple of years ago, right, Kim? 2020, during COVID, it was Game Changers Academy, and the participants were as young as age 7, Kim's son 7, up to the age of 13, and they were responsible for developing their own product. They had to develop their own sales pitch and their business plan. And it is amazing how strategic those kids were, and even given feedback on the presentation, they did not hold back anything. It's about the intonation, the pitch, even the attitude toward, when you're given the presentation itself. It was excellent. And so you're right about that. We have to start very young. One of the programs that it sounds like Mitzen's talking about is similar to junior achievement that we had in the United States. Do you remember that? Do you remember junior achievement? Maybe
Yeah.
that was before your time.
No,
Kim, you remember
I
it?
used to.
Yeah.
When I worked in
Yeah.
corporate, I would go and we would go to, I worked downtown Chicago and we would go into schools and we would talk about economics, the
Absolutely.
different
Yeah.
grade levels. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was
Yeah.
excellent. Darius, I love the fact that you're part of JBS. I partner with that whole ministry. And I
Awesome.
thought I saw you. You were on the panel this year, weren't you?
I was
Reviewing
on
some of the
absolutely.
the
Yeah.
pitches. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, my
That's so
goodness.
awesome.
This is small world.
Yeah.
All right. I am going to call on Miss Brooke.
Oh, she may be busy.
She may be
Yes.
busy.
Yeah,
Bogart, just in case, if there are others who would like to just
No,
ask
I'm here.
questions or give
You just may
comments.
have to be, kids may be in the back, but I guess one of my
I want to
biggest,
see your beautiful face. What's going on
because I'm not,
here?
let's see here, because I'm on the phone, so I don't want to, you know how it looks
There
weird
you
when you're on
go.
the phone. So one thing I wanted to ask Darius was, what is the biggest learning you've had, these past 4 years as you've grown your business?
Good question.
Ooh, I can write a book. Great question. Ooh, the biggest. I learned to trust in the value of my experience more than I initially did. I had a lot of questions about my ability. Well, I mean, this journey, the process will challenge you a lot. It'll challenge your own perception of yourself a lot. And along the way, I realized that each one of those that my experience has prepared me to handle each one of these challenges that presents itself. And just knowing that I will be challenged, but no challenge will be greater than what I'm capable of overcoming, has given me new perspective and new life to continue the journey. So now I don't underestimate and I don't devalue what I've done, because oftentimes you'll look around and you'll see what other people, you'll see, I may be a CPA and MBA, but you got PhDs and all this other stuff that's floating around. You're like, maybe I missed a class and I'm not equipped to do this. But I think God has put me in a great position to do what it is He put me here to do. And I rely on that daily.
Amen. Amen.
Amen to that.
Yes. Other questions before we close out? I want to give everyone an opportunity. It's quiet. It's like in my classroom. Oh my goodness.
We've got a lot of food for thought.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I think before we started, Dr. Love and I, we were talking about work ethic. And work ethic is extremely important, and we definitely need to have our young folks understand that you have to work hard. But I will say, I am encouraged by the speed at which this younger generation tends to try to move. I think it's our responsibility to to guide them. If they're going to move quickly, to equip them sooner to get there. I mean, I think when I talk about transforming our mindsets, there was a mindset and there has been a mindset that people have to earn their own stripes and they have to go through. I think we really need to challenge that and not allow our kids to live an entitled life, but they don't have to go through the stripes and the stresses that we had to get. You know, we need to allow them to be able to skip line a little bit, is how I see it. So I don't want to discourage that. I like when they say, but why now? But why do we have to wait for the law to change when we know that this is right? Like, I like them challenging it, but we have to give them the structure in which to do it. But don't discourage. I would challenge us not to discourage the speed at which they're trying to move, because in this space and me growing my business, I've seen my peers move a lot faster than I've had the ability to do. And I think we have, in order for us to catch up and to decrease that gap, we have to learn to move more quickly too, and create the infrastructure, support system, and resources to allow us to do that.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. Yes, and we can do it. We have the skills, we have the people to do it. Sometimes we get so caught up in the minutia, we don't step back a minute to say, wait a minute, we have all the talents and gifts right here.
Right.
Yes, so
I
we
agree.
use them. Yes, for the glory of God. Well, I want to thank you, Darius, for your wealth of knowledge and what you're doing to educate and innovate. You're such an extraordinary man, and I really appreciate you taking the time tonight. Just talk to all of us about scalability and innovation and LeagueSwype. And the next time I talk to you about fantasy football, I'm going to have all the definitions down.
Awesome. No. Thank you so much. This is a wonderful platform. I'm so glad God let you to lead it. It's so wonderful, and I'm glad that you saw me interesting enough to be on the panel.
Absolutely.
Great job.
Don't repeat that to your wife, because she's absolutely wonderful too. From the iPhone to everyone, the comment is, this was absolutely great. So thank you once again, Darius, and thank you, community, for joining us on Friday Night Chats with Dr. Love. Have a great night.
Have a great night. Take care, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye. Let's see if we can get everyone off. I see you, Dad.